Hey everyone, this is Kevin from the chesswebsite.com. Today we're going to be looking at the endgame, king and pawn endgame. Probably the most common endgame that you'll see. Many times players will evaluate in their game to come to this point and see if a game is won or drawn. And some of your top level games, you'll see players resign far in advance because they've come to this conclusion in their head. But if you're not a GM, then we want to go ahead and know both sides as you're white how to win, and if you're black how to defend correctly, so that if white's not playing correctly, that you can force a draw in this position. In this position, if it's white's turn, it's actually a winning game. If it's black's turn, it's actually a drawn game, and we're going to go over that. First, we're going to go over if it's white's turn and kind of the key concepts that he needs to be looking at. Now, a lot of times white will completely mess this up. People know that they need to get their king involved to protect this pawn, so they will go ahead and bring in their king to the d3 square. Unfortunately, this is now a drawn game. What can happen is black can go ahead and come down to d5, and this is a key concept in king and pawn endgame, that if the kings are two spaces between each other and it's white's turn, it's actually a drawn game. If it's black's turn, white still has the advantage and can easily win if played correctly. But in this position, since it's white's turn, it's a drawn game. White play can continue. King to c3. Black is just going to mare. He can always move to b3, mare. If he ever tries to go back, he can mare. He can always try to advance his pawn. Black king can just follow the pawn all the way up the board to the c8 square, and if it's eventually going to be a drawn game, there's nothing the white can do. So as we see early on, although it looks like a winning position, it should be pretty easy. You need very good tactics. So as we talked about before, if the kings are two spaces between each other and it's black's move, if it's white's move, it's a drawn game. So we want there to be two spaces and it's black's turn. So our first move is actually going to be d4. Okay, we are protecting our pawn, but we're two spaces and it's black's turn. So black's going to go ahead and move to c6. Obviously, black can always play terrible and move away and just make sure win a little easier. But if you place correctly, as you should if you are black, keep in mind if you are black, you should be studying this as well. White's going to go ahead and move to c4. Again, we want two spaces in between and it to be black's move for a winning position here. So in this position, we are aligned with our pawn. We're two spaces between. Now, whichever way the king moves, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to go in the opposite direction. Okay, so let's say that black moves to b6. We are actually going to move up and occupy the d5 square. Okay, now black should go ahead and move to d6. Obviously he can run away, but it'll just make things a little easier. And we're going to go ahead and repeat the same thing that we did before. We're going to go ahead and move to c5. Again, same position, just one step farther. And whichever way he moves, we're going to do the same thing. So if he moves to d7, we're going to go ahead and occupy the b6 square. And he can go ahead and come to the c8 square. And right now we're not as concerned with the two-space rule, because we're going to go ahead and start moving our pawn, but that will come into play in just a minute here. We're going to go ahead and promote our pawn here to c4 square, and black's going to go ahead and move to the b8 square. Now, technically on the we are two spaces, but again we're still moving our pawn, so we're going to go ahead and move our pawn one space, and now black moves, and now we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to go ahead and come to the c6 square, two spaces, and now it's black's turn. And now whichever way he goes, we are going to take the opposite direction. Now keep in mind, if this is not played correctly, if white tries to just keep promoting his pawn here, black can easily get a stalemate draw out of this. So keep this in mind if you're black. If white doesn't play correctly, it's a pretty easy draw for black. So black is forced to play either b8 or d8, doesn't matter. Both will be the same result. Let's say b8 now, same theme as before. White's going to go ahead and come to the d7 square. Black can no longer come to the c file, and white's going to easily promote his pawn to the c8 square and make a queen. So as we'll see here, let's say king to b7. pawn to c6, and king cannot come to c7 or c8, and then the next two moves we will have a queen. If you really want to rub it in, you can make a rook, but in all cases you're going to win the game fairly easy. We're going to go ahead and take a look at another position here and go over just another key concept and just look at if the pawn is on the B or G file here. But clearly we looked at the last one and saw that white can early on take a winning advantage and make it into a draw if he's not careful. And we'll see that here too. That goes over another key concept. If white moves to D2, black can just come to D6 and it's a draw in the game. And the reason is they are 4 spaces between each other and it's white's move. In the last example we touched on if they're 2 spaces in, 4 is no different, only because anytime white wants to come up to the 3rd rank, black can respond and just mirror and come to the 5th rank. And now they are 2 spaces between. So if it's 4 spaces or 2 spaces and it's white's turn, black has the advantage. And the same thing if there are 2 spaces or 4 spaces and it's black's turn, then white has the advantage. So just keep those things in mind if you're on the offense or the defense. So we're going to go ahead and play as you should, and just give you another example of how it should look. So we're going to come E2. Black's going to go ahead and try to come in the mix with D6. And we're going to move to F3. Again, black king can't come 2 or 4 spaces between us, but black is going to try to come into the mix. We're going to go ahead and keep going as far as we can to the G4 square. Black's going to continue his run to the F6 square. And just as if it was black's move and he went from G6 to F6, we're going to go ahead and take this H5 square. Now black's going to go ahead and try to retreat to the H8 corner. That's his best bet of drawing a stalemate or a draw. So he's going to come to the G7 square, and we're going to just repeat the same process. We're going to come to the G5 square, and whichever place he goes, we're going to go the opposite. So if he comes to the F7 square, we're just going to drop here to the H6 square, and then black's going to retreat to the H8 square, and then we're going to simply bring up our pawn and promote and win the game. So we'll go ahead and play that out. Black will go ahead and just go to the corner, and we will go ahead and bring our pawn, and black can go ahead and continue to bring this up. And just as before, we're going to use the same tactic that we always have. We're going to go ahead and move here, and we're 2 spaces between, and it's black's turn to move. Whichever way he doesn't go, we're going to go. So he's probably going to go to the H8 square, and we're going to go ahead and move our king to the F7 square. Now his king only has 1 spot to go, so it's going to go to the H7 square. We're going to go ahead and start promoting our pawn here and put him in check, and he's going to continue to retreat to the H8 square, and we're going to put him in check, and the only place he has to go is the H7 square, and we can easily promote to a queen, and from here go on to easily win the game. So hope this has helped as far as learning how the king pawn endgame works. If you ever find it in your own games, you will now be equipped to win pretty easy. If you do want some practice, you can actually visit my website where I've set up a few boards where you can play in different positions. That's thechesswebsite.com. It's also on my YouTube page. You can check that out. But go there, check it out. It's under Endgame and King and Pawn, and you'll see a couple puzzles there. But hope you enjoyed, hope you learned a lot. Please subscribe to the videos so you know when new ones are coming out. I'm going to be having a lot of videos coming out in the near future. So hope you enjoyed, and see y'all next video.